up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this fine program known internationally and around the world as Smokin' and Toastin', all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Yes, this is the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'.
Hi, Mom.
I don't know if you caught the show. Chris Hart's in the studio, by the way. Chris Hart, everybody.
Hart.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
And Ian is in Tucson, Arizona. And
Hi, y'all.
and here via Skype. It's great to see you, brother.
Man, good to see you. I'm sitting here in Tucson, Arizona, Anthony's Cigar Lounge, Anthony's Cigars, and Tucson being in this valley, if I look off to my left, I see mountains.
Yeah.
And when I look off to my right, I also see mountains.
Yeah, it's kind of like
It's
that.
pretty wild.
Yeah. Here in
A little different
Texas,
from Houston.
we're lucky if we get to see hills.
Yeah, for us,
We're
it's
running about 93 degrees outside right now with
Yeah.
a whopping ridiculous 8% humidity.
Oh man.
yeah. Here in Houston, if you look to the left, you see construction. If you look to the right, you see construction.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's the extent of our.
Yeah, that's our mountains. That's what we've got. No, Chris, we said on a previous show, I don't know if you have heard us say this or not, but that we decided that it was okay to refer to the show as world famous once I realized that my mom was aware that it existed.
Sure.
Because I never told her. Because this is not her thing, drinking and smoking. Definitely not
Definitely
my
not your
mom's
mom's thing.
Yeah. So once she became aware that it existed, I thought, well, we must be world famous at this point.
It must have found its
So
way.
that's my rationale. So that's why whenever I mention the world famous Smokin' and Toastin', Ian always pipes up and says, "Hi, Mom." So hi, Mom. It's show number 190. Now
Jesus.
that's the great news. The bad news is, since we're halfway to 200, we have no idea how to do show 200 in the pandemic world, because the whole idea behind what we did for show 100, and you were there, and what we wanted to do again in a bigger way for 200 was just putting all these crazy people we've had on as guests and stuff all together in one room, tons of bottles, everybody has cigars, we just kind of have a free-for-all. And show number 100 went on for like 4 hours.
Yeah, that was a blast.
I don't know how we do that in this situation. I mean, if we were to do that, we'd have to be all spaced apart. We'd have to use like 50 cameras. So
Or a really wide angle lens.
Or a really wide angle lens, exactly. So I don't know what we'll do for 200, but today we're going to talk about what the experts have to say about whiskey. And so we can't do a whiskey expert show without having our own resident whiskey expert, Chris Hart, on the show.
Wait a second. Did our whiskey expert bring rum?
Yeah, but I also brought whiskey. I brought whiskey.
Sure I got this straight.
I brought whiskey as well.
Well,
Yeah, not for you though.
This particular whiskey expert is also a big fan of the rum. And so he and I connect on that level, maybe even more than we do in the whiskey level. Because for me, like I love whiskey, but given a shot at having a really great glass of rum, I'd probably take that over the whiskey. And I know that's heresy for some people.
Oh yeah.
That's just where my palate's at.
Hey,
you know?
well, our first ever bottled product, you would think for Whiskey Pete would be a bottle of whiskey, but it is not.
It's not. It's a bottle of rum instead.
16-year-old rum. Yeah.
Well, so I'm really excited for you to tell us about this, because a little bird told me that you've got distribution, which means people are going to be able to buy this soon, right?
Yes, that will be. We finalized that today. It took it's been such a hectic couple of days that I forgot to brush my fro to come in here. So,
well, you're styling. You're looking good. Listen, everybody's hair looks different in the pandemic.
Sure.
If people would show up on Zoom with the craziest hair you've ever seen, even celebrities are like letting their hair and their beards go gray.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool, actually.
I like the look. One of my favorite comedians, Melissa Villaseñor, looks fantastic with gray hair.
Yeah,
and it's from Saturday Night Live. But it's been weird. This morning we finally finalized distribution, so it'll be a couple more weeks before these bottles are available. But they're already kind of pre-spoken for. I didn't really come to promote them as much as I wanted you. I want your blessing. So
you wanted to give me an opportunity to taste it.
Yes, yeah. So the last person I tasted these on was our friend over at B&B, Jeremiah.
Oh, and what was his take on the?
Loved it. Yeah. So there's one in particular that's divisive for its profile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to influence it. I'm just going to give it to you.
Is it one of the ones you have here? Okay. Good.
Yep. So I'll give it to you in a certain order,
right.
and we'll rub it in our Ian's face. And
yes. Plus, Ian, in addition to that, Chris brought some very nice-looking whiskeys, and I brought something that I have not yet tried. I'm sure you probably have.
If Chris is a real and congenial host, like other hosts we get, he'll just leave us a few of those bottles.
Well, that's true. Sometimes that does happen, Chris. People leave bottles behind for us,
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay, very good. In the meantime, we'll also have a chance to taste this. Chris, you have to tell me if you've had the George Dickel Barrel Select.
Yes, yeah. So Barrel Select or George Dickel period, I'm a huge fan of, especially their older stuff. I think it's really unique.
So I was looking for the Bottled in Bond, but I couldn't find it. That's what I actually went out searching for. And when I couldn't find that, I went with the bottle of the Select instead. But anyway, we'll be trying. I'll try it for the first time. You can tell me what you think, and Ian, I will have some of this left for you.
It's been a couple years
when you get back home.
I'd like to taste it as well.
So absolutely. So we have that. We're going to
awesome.
taste some great beers. Galveston Bay Beer Company's Ghostship Gose. We've had some Galveston beers on the show before, but we have not ever had one from Galveston Bay Beer Company, if I remember correctly, Ian. So excited about that.
Galveston Island. I don't know about Galveston Bay.
Yeah, Galveston Bay Beer Company. So it was the first time I actually remembered coming across them when I found this Gose. So I haven't tried it. I'm looking forward to trying it. And then one of my favorite breweries in the world, Ian and I did a show where we listed our 5 favorite breweries, and this was, I think, my number 3, is Bare Bottle Brewing Company from San Francisco. They are masters of the IPA, and they release different IPAs all the time, and I have their latest, or what I believe to be their latest, the Galactic DJ Hazy IPA. And so I know you like a good hazy, so I wanted to try that on you and see how that goes. I've not tasted that one anyway. And Ian, I had this great beer that I decided to save for you until you get back. I was going to bring in a beer that I discovered that is part barley wine, part imperial stout. And I thought, if ever there was a beer, I mean, the label should just say Ian Barry, because that's so like right up your alley. But I decided to save that for you next week. So Chris and I will be trying from Urban Family Brewing Company their Killer Queen sour ale with blackberry, honey, and hibiscus, which sounds like I'm either going to love it or hate it. Like I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you. So I'm looking forward to trying all of those. And we have drinking news again on the show today, and we have all kinds of things that are going on in the cigar world. We told you last week we were going to talk about the Pope declaring that whiskey is the true holy water. And then we never got to that. So for anybody that has not heard that story, we'll get to that.
I have not heard that story.
Okay, so we'll get to that as well.
To hear it.
And there are 10 whiskey brands that you need to try according to, I'm making air quotes for those of you listening and not viewing, experts.
Okay.
And so I thought
I got some thoughts on this.
We can't do that without having our own expert weigh in on it. So you know what's great about Smoking and Toasting for me is we have a resident whiskey expert, who comes on the show whenever we invite him to. We have our wine expert, Mark Burrell. Areas especially that I'm not very, fluent in, we have people who can speak with much more authority, and so that's an exciting thing about the show. Ian,
all joking aside, I really do learn something brand new every time we sit down and chat about whiskey. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Ian, I saw earlier that you have already lit up a cigar and you're smoking. So what's going on over there?
I did. Well, you guys get the whiskey and the rum. I'm going to make you jealous, and I'm smoking a cigar while we're talking.
I am jealous.
This is a Tatuaje TAA exclusive 2020.
Okay, so
it's a great stick.
This is one of the cigars that is only available to the TAA member stores, correct?
Mm-hmm. It is. And that's the Tobacconists Association of America. This is their newest 2020. I haven't had this one, and the shop provided me with this. I'm at Anthony Cigars over here in Tucson. They got like 4 locations. I'm just going to give them a quick sting here because they did so nice to me. They've been open about 25 years out here, and they're super friendly. So I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Awesome. And so this Tatuaje, apparently Chris is familiar with this particular stick and likes it.
Yeah, unless if I'm not mistaken, that was last year's.
This is the 2020.
Okay, no, I have not had it then. Yeah. Last year's was fantastic.
Last year's was also quite good, and it looks identical to last year's.
Okay.
Like color, everything. So, but this one's starting off with a lot of cappuccino and chocolate flavors right off the bat. This is a kind of a dark brown cigar with a semi-smooth surface, a little bit oily. I'm really digging it so far.
Awesome. Well, we'll see how it goes. Now, you've got a spirit of your own to taste over there when we're doing a little rum and whiskey tasting, correct?
I do. I got a local from Independent Distillery.
Oh, nice.
I don't know how well that's showing up there. There we go.
There we go.
Distillery barrel-aged gin.
Nice.
Yeah, you can't legally call it barrel-aged gin.
So
That's why it says rested.
Barrel rested.
Yeah.
Oh, barrel-rested gin. Sorry.
Very interesting. Yeah. And why is that a particular
archaic stupidity?
So it's just one of those things.
In fact, I believe recently the TTB went ahead and changed. There was a bunch of changes proposed. Barrel sizes, gin, vodka. Vodka used to be known as a colorless and odorless spirit by definition.
Mm-hmm.
Now it does not have to be flavorless. You can
have a flavor.
There's more you can do to it now. So they've loosened some regulations. I believe one of the regulations that was changed was gin. You can have a barrel aged gin and call it barrel aged gin.
Okay, that's good to know.
That
but
seems to be becoming substantially more popular recently.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anything that spends time in a barrel is beautiful.
Yeah, and for good reason. I mean, it just takes things to a whole different level once they're allowed to rest or age or whatever you call it, depending on what it's in. And it's just the simplest concept in distilling. So it's
nuance.
Yeah, nuance. Thank you.
Brought a few local beers to taste alongside of your tastings today.
I love that because I love when we get beers from all over. What are you trying, Ian?
So I got Santan Brewing Company.
Is that out of Tucson?
Arizona style lager.
Oh, nice. I like the can. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a pretty classy looking can. That comes in at 4.7%. I got Morning Buzz Coffee Stout from Mud Shark Brewery, also local.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And then just to make you guys seriously jealous, because I haven't seen this before, and this is not local. This is from Burbank, California, but this is Trejo's Cerveza.
Oh, wow.
Mexican lager.
Nice. That's sweet.
Nice. That can's as tall as he is, too.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
Especially when his head's on a turtle. But I digress. So let me tell you, Ian, about the cigar that I smoked this week because it was really interesting. Notice how I said the cigar that I smoked this week. Correction.
The cigar. There's
one of the cigars that I smoked this week. In particular, I had the La Aroma de Cuba Monarch. The Aroma de Cuba line of cigars is created and blended by Jose Pepin Garcia at the My Father factory, but he does it for Ashton. So there's so much of this going on in the cigar world now where you have blenders from one company who get involved in blending a cigar for the other company, like what AJ Fernandez is doing with a lot of the major brands and all of that stuff. So it's a real interesting thing that you're seeing more and more of today. So this was another, I thought, really pretty stick. It was had a beautiful band. La Aroma de Cuba has one of the prettiest bands, I think, in cigars right now. It had a red ribbon around the foot, slightly veiny, but still gorgeous Connecticut broadleaf wrapper. The filler and I believe the binder were both Nicaraguan. And so on the pre-light, it had a nice hay and barnyard kind of aroma. Once I lit it up, here came the earthiness that you kind of expected from the barnyard pre-light and some chocolate. The Nicaraguan pepper was there too, but it's instead of it being kind of a blast on the front, like so many Nicaraguan tobacco cigars, it was there mostly on the finish and in the retrohale. So So Ian, you're right by a street, so we're going to hear some street noise occasionally if people are wondering. That's what that is. So anyway, the pepper was there, but mostly it was on the finish and the retrohale. That pepper finish got longer though as the cigar smoked, and I really enjoyed it. I like pepper in as a flavor in my cigars. I have a tendency to enjoy mostly Nicaraguan cigars, and so I like that sort of pepper profile, but I never want it to be the only thing. And so when cigars got these other kind of flavors and aromas happening with the pepper, it's really, really nice. Around the second third, I got some wood and nuttiness starting to emerge from it. And then in the final third, this really kind of pleasant sweetness came in. And what it did was it kept the cigar from getting that sort of harshness that some cigars can get, especially stronger cigars can get when you're in the last third because you're so close to the flame and there's not as much tobacco between you and the part that's lit. And sometimes cigars will get a little bit of that burning sort of harshness to them, but the sweetness really offset that. So it made it a very nice smoke all the way down to the nub. It was nice and complex all the way through, medium bodied, decent burn. It's another $8 to $9 cigar. That seems to be all I've been reviewing lately, but it didn't disappoint. I'd recommend it. Price to quality, 5.5. So just felt like it was just a little bit better than what I paid for it. Very nice.
Well, my cigar review is going to be a little less complete. So far, the pre-late sniff on this was cigar, a little bit of hay, a little barnyard. The pre-late draw on this had a lot of coffee and cappuccino. The initial light on this had a lot of coffee and cappuccino, very little pepper, actually. And now that I'm getting about this far into the cigar, it's picking up a ton of cedar and chocolatey, malty kind of notes.
Nice. Well, as jealous as I am of you, because I can see how much you're enjoying that just watching you smoke it on the screen, I have to say that jealousy was diminished just a little bit. A moment ago while you were talking, I kind of took my first
sniff
nose of this rum that Chris poured me, and I realized that you won't be sampling this, Ian. I'm so sorry, because it smells delicious. It really does.
Sad,
it's got that slightly overproofed vibe to the nose.
Yeah, so all of these offerings are single barrel cast strength unadulterated.
Okay.
Foursquare, as you know, is probably the most popular rum.
Right. I've got a bottle of the
currently
Foursquare
out now.
that we sampled here on the show that's in my bar, and whenever I'm in the mood for a rum that's really big, that's where I go.
So this rum is actually the only opportunity you're going to get in Texas to find at retail a fully cast strength, unwatered down, single barrel version of their rum. Everything else they do is blended. Everything else they do is slightly watered down. And anything that has water in it, they normally add a touch of color to it. So this is unadulterated, and you can actually see here at the bottom, you see a lot of barrel char floating around at the bottom of it. That is unfiltered. And so this is your chance to taste deconstructed Foursquare, is what I like to call it.
Well, I will tell you, on the first sip, I like this better than the bottle of Foursquare that I have in my bar at home.
Yeah, at 100.
I think it's got the same kind of impact, but it's got more flavor to me. I'm getting more of the maple notes and the vanilla that I associate with kind of softer rums, you know?
Sure.
And that's the one thing I sometimes miss when I go with something like the Foursquare is I feel like I get that sort of like whiskey hug vibe going.
Sure. Well, there's a ton of heat in that too.
But I don't get the same flavor necessarily.
Sure.
And so this, I think, is really spectacular.
You may want to add a couple drops of water to it, but that 128 proof, 12 years old, cast strength single barrel, and we're proud of it.
That's really good. So you mentioned that we may or may not actually be able to find these at retail?
No, you will be able to find them at retail. We had 6 stores basically. When offered, some wanted their own entire barrel. So,
gotcha.
So we did our first run is 6 barrels, 3 Guyana, 2 Foursquare, and 1 Belize, and those will be available around Houston in certain areas. And then they'll be announced. You can follow our the Whiskey social media page or my Instagram Whiskey Pete.
Right.
And and then I tasted you on that one first because I think the Belize is the most bourbony of the two, and that's a little even more 130 proof.
Okay.
And then the Guyana is 16 years old and quite a drop in proof. So
All right.
very unique, and from what we understand, we suspect that this was distilled on the Port Morant still, which is the oldest rum still in rum making.
Wow.
It's an old wooden still, so it's pretty interesting. It's got tons of licorice, tons of anise. It's so different, so bizarre that it just is not going to compare to.
It's going to be totally different.
Totally
Yeah.
different.
Okay,
So we
good.
wanted to end with that one.
All right, so looking forward to that, and I want to find out a little more about how you got into the whole
Sure.
process of this. We are going to take a break, and we'll return shortly with Ian in Tucson, Chris Hart and Cruz in the studio in Houston. We're heard around the world. This is Smoking and Toasting, and we'll be right back.
Awesome.
Oh, baby.
That's a good sound.
Welcome back to Smokin' and Toastin'. It's the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, Texas. So those of you who are catching us on the Facebook feed, you got to hear just before we came back for the segment, you got to hear that awesome sound effect of Chris opening the can of beer. Chris, you brought this one in. This is a Spindle Tap, and this one I believe is a limited release.
It might
Isn't
be.
it?
It might be. I got it from the brewery. It's a double IPA from them called One Love. And,
Wow.
man, that can almost froze.
Yeah, and if you look at it, see, I will never forget the first time I
Don't
tasted.
forget you got freezer beer.
Yeah, the first time I tasted a Ghost in the Machine was when you brought it on the show. That's from Parish Brewing, and it was so frozen it had chunks of ice in it.
Oh, yeah.
It immediately became like my favorite IPA ever.
Delicious, yeah.
It's just so good, and it was so good frozen. I just wanted to show this to the camera how this may look more like actual orange juice than any hazy IPA I've ever seen. That's crazy how hazy, crazy and hazy.
Yeah, there's a couple of great Houston breweries who do unique styles extremely well,
Yes.
right? And Genius is big on the adjuncts and the experimental series. Copperhead Brewery in Conroe, they are the barrel-aged kings
Yep.
of the state as far as I'm concerned. And listen, Spindle Tap kills, knocks it out of the park
Spindle Tap
with hazy
and hazy.
IPAs.
Yeah.
Sigma
Yeah,
does
they kill
too.
it with that.
Yeah.
Sigma does great.
And what's the name of the guys in Kingwood, or are they in Kingwood or
Somebody
Conroe?
in Genius?
Yes,
In Humble? That's
in
Justin.
Humble. Thank you, man. Those guys have got it going on as
Just
well.
had them on. They have really jumped up. They started doing something called Fruit Madness, and it's just
Yes.
it's a breakfast slushy in a can.
It's
fantastic.
wonderful. You mentioned having them on. Talk a little bit about your show. What?
Oh yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with me, I don't ever come on the show. I have a show on ESPN in Houston called Whiskey Neat, where we sit around with guests over drinks. We've had recently Brian Callen, Brendan Schaub, Dolph Lundgren. We've had a couple of decent names. John Witherspoon right before he passed. And this weekend we actually have Mark Norman coming on. If you're a Mark Norman comedy stand-up fan, He's this generation's Jerry Seinfeld, but a little dirtier.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more excited to have him on.
And you can find your show as a podcast as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. So the uncensored version is released on iTunes as well as all your podcast platforms. Thank you for being attuned to promotion. I'm bad at this. So I appreciate your support walking me through that.
No, you know what? You're not the guy who basically organized and started the Houston Whiskey Social, which I still maintain is the best beverage event that I've ever been to. There's no way you're bad at promotion, because that thing sells out and it's a huge hit every year. Maybe this is a good time for me to ask you. I know we're a long way away from the next social, but with the stuff going on with the pandemic, is it even possible to do something like the social if social distancing stuff is still in place?
So that is a fantastic question.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. So not only are we having one event next year, we are now introducing a second event that is the Houston Agave Social, and that will be in the fall. And that will be, now I know it's called the Houston Whiskey Social, but we'll have our good friend Greg Dosakis, who has cognac and rum.
Right.
So we'll have a few exceptions to the whiskey rule.
Of course, yeah.
And for the fall event, we will have a few exceptions for the agave rule to include Sotol, which is not
Right.
agave, right? So We will be lining out a second event in the fall called the Houston Agave Social, and our event is still slated for the end of February. Usually tickets go on sale September 1st, Bourbon Heritage Month. We are going to wait a little bit.
Okay.
It is a very peculiar time right now.
Yeah, it is.
But we will be reaching out to vendors in the next couple of months, and either September 1st or October 1st, we will be announcing the next event, and but it will be the end of February next year.
Assuming that people are still social distancing similar to what's happening now,
I don't think that'll still be in place.
If it did, would you maybe look for a bigger venue so there'd be more room between people, or would you limit tickets? What would your approach be?
Great question. So one of our issues that we had last year is we finally hit capacity. Last year we realized, hey man, it's too many people. So what we're gonna do, we fielded two different scenarios. One, we were looking at another venue right in the heart of downtown, the Houston Marriott Marquis, to take off to basically take over their entire ballroom floor.
Right.
And then people could just go up to their rooms, which would be great. Except that is the only venue we've been able to find that is potentially open to sectioning off and removing their liquor license for that scenario.
I see.
Which is important.
Which they have to do.
They have to
be able to do the social. Right.
Yep. And they are just absolutely awful at getting back to me. You would think if someone was going to give you $150,000 to do an event that they would be eager to get back at you, but I'm being a little catty. But they're not very great at it. So the other scenario we looked at was taking over more of the current venue. Right now we've got the Cigar Lounge, which is perfect. No complaints, lots of room. But if we take over more of the grounds, there's also a back patio. We could throw up some luxury tents. We can expand outside the venue, move all the food to the luxury tent. So then you've got another 2,000 square feet. We could reduce the number of tickets a little bit. We've got potential to utilize more of the grounds and solve the two problems we had last year, which were bathroom lines and elbow room.
So one way or another, this thing's going to happen.
It's going to happen unless
the weather was beautiful last time.
Yeah, it really was.
Absolutely beautiful. It was comfortable to go out there in a jacket even.
Sure.
No problems. It was super nice.
Ian and I spent time alternating between the main floor, getting samples, and out in the cigar lounge, of course, having a cigar, which I think is what a lot of people do. It's just a great social experience, you know? I
think we have potential to spread out a little more and still keep it there for maybe one more year.
Good.
The Agave Social in the fall, we're going to cap that at a very small number, like maybe less than 500 people, as it's its first year. We want to make sure it's done right. So we may be there one more year. We just need to. Every year we have one or two things you have to fix.
Right.
And every year so far we've fixed them.
Right. And the new stuff crops up.
3 years ago it was the heat.
Yep.
2 years ago it was check-in. Last year we fixed all of those problems, and it was more elbow room and bathroom. So
yes, I get it.
We've got some ideas.
Well, when you do the Agave Social, just remember your friend and your buddy who actually prefers agave as
blasphemy,
his favorite spirit.
I thought about you immediately as soon as we had it. So we're also contemplating a rum event as well, and if we can tweak and perfect locally these events and do right by the ticket holders and the vendors and make sure that they are taken care of, because you have to make sure you take care of both ticket holders and vendors. I think you'll see maybe even a rum event as well.
I'm there for all these events. I'm there. I was watching Ian on Skype as Chris was talking, and he took an enormous swig of the beer that he's tasting, and it actually reminded me of when we had Mark Nichols on the show, and apparently Ian and I were boring him at one point, so he kind of sat back and shotgunned a beer on camera behind us.
I remember that. It was
pretty awesome. Ian, what are you drinking first?
I am drinking the Danny Trejo.
Oh, nice. And so it's a
Trejo
Mexican
Cerveza.
It's a Mexican lager. How is it?
It says Heco in LA. The Mexican craft lager. This is from I just saw it on here. Born in Mexico, brewed in LA. It says brewed and packaged by Lincoln Beer Company, Burbank, California.
Nice.
Raw premium Pilsner malt, Wyman Munich type 1 malt, flaked rice, flaked maize, Magnum hops, some other stuff I can't pronounce, and lager yeast. Nectar of Mexican Gods, it says on the back. I got to tell you, this is outstanding.
Yeah.
This is a lager with some really nice big flavor to it, but finishes nice and clean. Not too much hop, so it doesn't get bitter at all. Actually, it's got that nice malty kind of light malty finish, and this is an outstanding lager.
When it comes to Mexican lagers, for me, I either love them or I don't like them at all. Like the ones that I like, I really love. But I'm a little picky about them, to be honest, and I want them to have some flavor. But sometimes they try too hard to be weird and different, and the flavors don't mesh as well for me.
I got 2 questions for both of you. So one's a quick answer. Second one's a bit more complicated.
Give Ian the complicated.
What are your thoughts? Do you thumbs up, thumbs down, real simple, of Dos Equis?
Dos Equis
Thumbs down.
as a brand? I'm in the middle.
Yeah. In terms of if you're looking, let me shape that question a little bit better. If you're looking at a what's the name, Gringos, or you're at some typical Tex-Mex restaurant and you're looking for a beerita or something, just a quick Mexican beer, what are you going for? Is it Dos Equis?
Okay, hold on. I've never had a beerita.
Oh, they're fantastic.
That's awkward.
Yeah.
So Tecate?
That's awkward.
See,
Second thing is Negro Modelo usually.
Sure. Yes. If in the mainstream brands, I would go Negro Modelo number 1.
Yes.
Tecate number 2.
Tecate in a can I can drink that all day.
Tecate number 2. Dos Equis would be 3rd, and Corona would be 4th. That's just me.
I won't ever drink a Corona again.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a fan of Corona, and I don't know if they'll survive the pandemic.
Oh, no joke.
I think we're likely to see them put that beer out under another name and just try to start over.
I'm a fan. Officially, I'm a fan of Dos Equis. I'm not. I don't hate it, and it's like yard beer. I
will tell you this though.
Very sessionable, as they say.
Dos Equis makes the worst beer I've ever tasted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's their Dos Equis Mexican Pale Ale.
Oh, is it that blue one?
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible. We've had it on the show, and I remember Ian started out saying, yeah, it's not great, but it's okay. And like the more of it he had, the more he hated it, till I think he hates it.
It got worse.
He
and
hates
worse.
it now as much as I do. So it's awful.
Second question: when are you two, with the internationally known podcast Smoking and Toasting, when are you two going to do a beer collaboration with a local brewery? Like, and here's my suggestion for breweries.
Yeah.
Eureka.
Eureka Heights?
Yeah.
Question.
It's a great question. It'd be fun actually to
I pitched it
get
to him.
involved in that.
So I met the owner at an event.
Mm-hmm.
One of the owners. Then
Rob?
I think he was on the show. He's the shorter guy.
Joel.
Say it again.
Joel.
Yes, that's who I met at an event. Actually, you guys were at that event. That was the event the Glenfiddich launch. You remember that night?
Yes, that was a great night.
And then at the Whiskey Social, I met their head of marketing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned, and I have thought, for some reason, my mind has just been obsessed with the idea of you guys doing, and I can help place that beer places if you're unsure of. But I think you guys, this is the quintessential beer show, longest running, as far as I know, longest running beer show in Houston. There's one other. John Kinman, he had a Drink of Ages pub.
Okay.
I think his show is still on the air.
Okay.
But he had a pub.
Right.
You know, you guys
we don't have a pub.
You guys could do.
We have Ian's backyard. That's it.
I think you guys could do something killer with Eureka.
That's a great thing, and let's definitely talk about doing that because I love the idea. I just love the idea of seeing Ian's picture on a can.
Oh yeah, just his head.
That'd just be awesome.
That Billy Goat of a beard.
Yeah, just smiling.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that's smiling.
You say that. I'm just growing it long enough so I can split it into two.
Oh, I love that idea.
Into two braids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to Renaissance Festival in the fall, or what's the plan here? What's the goal with that?
I just say that to terrify my wife.
Yes, yeah. I love it. I love it.
Ian the Conqueror, Ian the Fierce.
Speaking of breweries from the Houston area, this Spindle Tap One Love, which by the way does not have a picture of Bob Marley on it.
No.
But certainly evokes in its color scheme you see the color scheme, you see the name One Love, you immediately start hearing the song in your head.
Sure.
And it's a really interesting hazy because most hazies that I've had that are similar in mouthfeel to this either are a much sort of a sweeter citrus vibe to them, or they're bitter in a hop bitter kind of way. This has almost a different kind of bitter to it.
So
to me,
this was part of a 4-pack of Break 'Em Off, Faded, One Love, and I forget the other. And the One Love, officially I like it, but it's not as good as Faded, and it's better than Break 'Em Off.
Yeah,
it's this weird area where at first it's very breakfasty.
Yep.
You talking about that orange juice, the color.
Yep.
But then
it finishes with a bit of a bitterness it's different. It's not that kind of resiny bitterness from hops.
Did you give some to?
I did.
You got it?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say the things I love most about Spindle Tap, I love their what is their basic haze? Is it Houston Haze? Houston Haze.
5% tint is garbage.
See, I disagree with you completely.
I can't stand
5% tint is my favorite low-cal.
Low-cal? I don't know if are they low-cal?
No, that's what
really?
it's all about.
Yeah?
It's 5%. Well, for a hazy IPA it is.
Sure.
It may not be, less calories than a Michelob Ultra.
Sure.
But it's their entry into that world, the lower ABVs. I think it's great.
It also doesn't taste like a Michelob Ultra either.
No, it certainly doesn't.
Houston Haze I'll drink all day.
Yeah.
5% tint is when I need something for the yard and I'm out of Houston Haze, I'll grab a 5% tint.
I go there. It's one of my go-tos when I want a lower ABV, maybe lower calorie, lower carb beer. I go generally with that, with the Lagunitas Daytime, and with the Dogfish Head.
The Slightly Mighty is
Slightly
probably
Mighty.
my favorite out of
That's
the
so
bunch.
good.
What are y'all's thoughts on Montucky Cold Snack?
I'm going to throw that one to Ian.
Ooh.
On what?
Montucky Cold Snack?
I haven't tried it.
I think you stumped us. I don't think either of us
I've
have.
seen it. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, so they're 16-ounce beers that usually run about $1 a can. It's a price to quality index. It's really hard to beat.
Well, that's just like Ian when he smoked a Black and Mild. It was price to quality. I think he gave it like an 8.
They've got a beautiful can with a picture of a unicorn on the front, and it's just a 16-ounce $1.05, $1.10 beer that you can get at places like Eight Row Flint or some of Morgan Weber's joints.
I actually have one in my refrigerator, but I haven't opened it and tried it. So.
It's a basic
I've seen it.
basic lager.
Blue can with the unicorn
Yep.
on it. Yep, yeah.
Yeah, basic lager. And I believe it's adjunct. It's got something to it, but
And what do you think?
I love it. Yeah.
Okay,
for
good.
price to
Well-
quality index, it's really hard to beat.
I definitely look forward to trying it. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to taste another rum and maybe another beer, and then we got to talk whiskey.
Okay.
We
All
got
right.
a whiskey expert on the show, and we got whiskey to try. So stand by, everybody. We'll be right back at Smoking and Toasting, and we are on show number 190. We'll be right back.
We are
190,
halfway to
brother.
200.
190.
What's that, Ian?
So we are halfway to 200.
Yep.
Well. How do you do that, man?
Hit it, man. Don't be shy.
All right, coming back into segment 3, Chris Hart's going to do the well.
No, go ahead. It's all you, man.
We usually only do it at the top of the show because I don't want to. Here, I just say, welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 190. Halfway to 200, as Ian likes to say.
200, everybody.
We are, Chris Hart and I are live in the studio. He's our special guest, our whiskey expert this week. Ian is remotely located here via Skype because he's in Tucson. Your brother lives in Tucson, right, Ian?
He does. My brother
Yeah.
lives in Tucson.
It's so refreshing to see that you actually talk to your family.
Yeah.
I can't stand most of mine.
So
That's great.
I don't know if I have an unusual family like that, but everyone in my family gets along with everyone else in my family.
Yeah, that's a good thing because it's not always a given, you know?
It's not always a given, and I really appreciate
It really
Not
isn't.
only that, but I got a big family. You know, I've got 2 brothers and 4 sisters.
And you got another brother that's in Michigan, right? In like one of the
International Falls.
one of the
Minnesota.
coldest cities in the world, or something like that, or snowiest cities maybe in the world.
It's the coldest city in the continental United States.
Oh my God, that's just amazing. I don't know I don't know how he does it.
That sounded good.
So, yeah, I just popped open a can of the Ghostship Gose. Let me show this to the camera because we don't have Mr. Twirlygig active today, and he is missed. We missed Ian in the studio, and we missed Mr. Twirlygig. That is the Ghostship Gose. It is from Galveston Bay Brewing Company. It says on the can, brewed by the Bay, high grade, and it goes on to say that Gose, a style nearly lost forever, has been salvaged by Galveston Bay Beer. Naturally tart, Ghostship Gose is crafted with coriander, a pinch of sea salt, and finishes balanced and refreshing. By using a similar fermentation process to the original, we're proud to introduce this unburied treasure. So I'm going to pour some of this for us in the studio.
I tried that for the first time at the Brewmasters Festival in Galveston.
So the Galveston Bay Brewing Ghostship Gose? Is that what you tried?
No. Not Galveston Bay. Sorry, no, it was Galveston Island.
Okay, right, because that's a different brewery.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
Ooh, can I give some thoughts already?
You had their stuff. Yeah, Chris, talk to me.
Blueberries.
Blueberries.
Take a smell of just the head.
I don't normally think of blueberries in a Gose, but it always has that fruitiness to it.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well,
you're right. There's blueberries on the nose for sure.
I'm defining that fruity as a blueberry for sure.
There's something else in there too, though. Something maybe a little darker berry, like a blackberry.
Salty.
Well, it said it had some sea salt.
Yeah, salty. It's got.
Well, most great Goses have got some saltiness to them. In fact, there's one, Ian. I think we've had the one on the show before, the Salty Lady, Gose, and it's that's part of its whole profile. Is it's a very so it's kind of like it's the same sort of experience in a Gose as you get when you have a margarita, but it's got salt on the rim of the glass.
Martin House, isn't it?
Yes, it is Martin House. Thank you.
All of that sea salt, all of that reminds me of sweat. The whole thing reminds me of my uncle growing up.
No, this is not necessarily.
You give my uncle a hug. He's a case in for the day. You know.
This is not necessarily a positive review. Does that flavor keep you from enjoying the beer?
No, I'm enjoying it. It's a good beer. But you know those family members you hug growing up and you smell it coming through their skin.
Oh yeah.
But in a good way. How do I say that in a positive way?
Well, it's kind of like what your grandma's house smelled like. It's not a fragrance you want like in a spray can of air freshener, but it's still got a certain comforting quality to it when you go to see Grandma. Am I right, Ian?
Our friend Ian is laughing. So our friend Jessica Moore Kern says Galveston Bay makes an amazing watermelon wheat beer. So shout out to Jessica Moore Kearns over at Barrel Craft Spirits.
Nice, I love it. This is an enjoyable beer. It's not my favorite Gose that I've had.
It's interesting,
but it is
savory.
interesting. Yeah,
savory.
It's savory, and actually, that's interesting you say it because usually with Gose, the first word you think is tart, and with this one, the first word you think is savory.
Agreed.
But
when you do say tart, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely
the tartness is there. Yeah, no question. Ian, what did you just pop open there in Tucson?
So I just popped open the Santan Brewing Company 1920 Arizona style lager.
I love the look of that can. I would buy that based on the can alone.
Their whole they're very distinctive cans, and their whole line has cans that are kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
They had a few, but I decided to try this since it was distinctly Arizona style lager. And on the can it says Santan 1920 lager is bright, crisp, and easy drinking brew, a homage to our city of Chandler, incorporated in 1920, just months after the birth of Prohibition. This lager's beautiful, simple palate is achieved through the use of a single hop Amarillo.
Nice. Amarillo hops is I've enjoyed a lot of different IPAs that used Amarillo and Simcoe hops. So
this lager has a sweetness in the middle of the palate that fills it out as a gorgeous beer, and then finishes with a very crisp hoppy pop to it. This is incredibly balanced.
Well,
man,
I'm a little jealous on this one. I'd really like to taste that.
There's a little breadiness, a little pretzel to it. There's a little saltiness to it. There's a little bit of malt sweetness right in the middle, and that hop just cleans it up. It's so good.
I love it. That sounds like it's just right up my alley in terms of the
flavor.
The way I like those to taste from a flavor standpoint. Yeah. By the way, news in the cigar world this week. The founder of Gurkha Cigars,
oh Lord,
resigned.
Good.
Stepped down as company president after apparently
A social media
some
post.
horrible social media posts regarding the Black Lives Matter movement. And now he claims his Twitter feed was hacked. I have a question. Chris, you're a guy that understands the computer world. Is it even really possible for somebody to hack someone else's Twitter account? And how likely is it? Because it's the first thing that people always claim.
How probable is it?
How probable? Better question. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not defending him, but
Right.
a little bit more benefit of the doubt. Older people are more prone to click on phishing links and emails.
And so if a phishing link gets your information, they could hack your Twitter feed.
But do I believe that's what happened? No, not at all. I mean, it was very obvious, this guy, because it wasn't just on his Twitter, I think, or on his Instagram. It was also on his, there's some, if you go to his Facebook page, there were some other posts that were pretty, that supported his stance.
Yeah.
And the black community, Samara Rivers over at the Black Bourbon Society, immediately was like, we can't say the F word on this, but F Gurkhas.
Can.
Okay.
You can absolutely
Yeah,
say
yeah. Everybody was like, fuck Gurkha.
Right.
And the backlash was, of course, they stepped down. Now, I'm sure that was more of a either step down or we're going to force you down.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always felt like if I was a guy who was running a phishing scheme and I was sending out these emails that say, click here to get a larger penis or whatever stuff they do to get people to click on.
Click all day. Yeah.
Right.
Those are phishing schemes?
Yeah. Yeah. Catfishing schemes, actually. But I digress.
Hold on, I got a keyboard here.
Yeah, okay. But no, if I was going to do that, I'd be trying to log into people's bank accounts and steal money. Not that I would ever do that, but
that's actually a very good point.
I wouldn't be trying to go on somebody's Twitter feed or their Instagram
for a political statement
and make a political statement to get them in trouble. What would some hacker in Mongolia care about the guy from Gurkha Cigars and want to get him fired?
Again, I'm not defending him, but I got a plausible scenario.
Okay,
a competitor.
Oh,
right. So if there's another, I mean, let's be honest. Ever since Bill Clinton blew up Gurkha in the 90s as to his tool of choice.
His tool of choice, yes.
Yeah, the Gurkha has exploded in popularity, and I mean they're one of the big ones, right?
Well, if I were a competing cigar company and I hacked his Twitter or Instagram, I wouldn't make racial statements. I'd just make a post that was something like, wow, we're sure having trouble with our cigars unraveling when people try to smoke them.
Sure.
That's what I would
say.
Yeah.
Again, is it plausible? It's slightly plausible. I was just answering your question.
No,
what would a
I
hacker
appreciate that.
want? A competitor trying to hurt the brand. But
well, I think it's a good thing for pretty much everything that he stepped down. Certainly if Gurkha Cigars is to ever be able to do business again.
Alan Denny's saying, Chris, really? A competitor? Hey, I'm not. His question was, why would a hacker do that? Well, a hacker who was after financial information would just be after financial information. But if you were trying to hurt a brand, that's the way you do it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And Alan says, no, they're not one of the big ones. Okay. All right, Alan Denny. Listen, I'm on the show right now.
This is what I love about Alan. Even when he's not here to physically pod crash, he still finds a way to pod crash.
He still has a way to ruin my day.
I'll tell you a great story. This is true.
This is hilarious.
Last night, Ian texted me because he wanted to check out his Skype from Tucson, make sure that it would be stable for the show today, right? And make sure it was working on his computer the way he wanted to. So I texted him back and said, yeah, I'll call you in a couple minutes. So I went and got my iPad, set it up, went to Skype. And the way that my Skype is set up, it's got the main screen, and then on the side, it's got the list of previous calls and stuff.
Sure.
So rather than track Ian down in contacts, there was a call sitting there in my previous list, and it said Ian. It said Ian Barry and the studio. I was like, well, nobody's at the studio. I'll just hit this, and the studio won't connect, and I'll connect with Ian. So I connect with Ian, and we just started talking, and boom. On the screen comes Alan Denny without a shirt on, I might add, and apparently the screen didn't allow me to see, but Alan was also on that chat that I hit.
Sure.
So it rang him, and of course he answered, and so I said to Ian, it doesn't even have to be a podcast for Alan to crash it. He'll crash anything. I love that.
Yeah, well,
Love that guy.
To be honest, if you saw him without a shirt, he wasn't wearing pants either.
Oh well,
knowing Alan, you got spared. But
I'm glad that the angle was as it was. That's all I have to say. So, so Chris, I haven't even gone to
that's
smell the second one.
That's the Belizean rum.
Oh
right?
no,
from
love
Belize.
this. Love this on the nose.
14 years old, also unfiltered.
And how old was the first one? Was it
12?
12. Okay, so 12.
So
to 14.
we've got 12, 14, and 16 years
Okay.
old.
And now the Belizean rums that I've had before, I've found very interesting and complex.
Oh yeah, this is arguably so. There's a couple people I've tasted on that have disagreed with my order. I think the order should be Foursquare, Belize, Guyana.
Mm-hmm.
Dominic Sung, a good friend of mine, we've recently become pretty close. Dominic thinks that the Foursquare is better than the Belize, but Wade Woodard, as you know, the Belize is his favorite. And Wade is very discerning.
So the interesting thing about this, it actually has some similarities to the Foursquare, but the sweetness, the sugar sweetness of the rum
Loves the spice.
concentrates right on the center of your palate, and it has this wonderful, almost gritty quality to it. Like you ever like your mom like makes a frosting or something, and you lick the
spoon.
The spoon. It's got that kind of a characteristic to it. Not chocolate, but just that sort of gritty sugariness to it, and it's very pleasant on the middle of the palate.
And this is somehow less hot than the one before. It's 100, but it's 130 proof, 65%. This is technically flammable.
Wow.
So a touch of water might help.
That's good to know.
Careful when you're smoking a cigar near that.
Yes, no kidding. Chris, that's really good. So let me ask you this rum question. Clearly, Houston Bourbon Society, obviously you'd love to do your own bourbon, and I'm sure you are working on that behind the scenes even as we speak.
Well, I think it'll be the last thing we touch. Bourbon, to be honest, is oversaturated in terms of everyone's sourcing, everyone's bottling. So
it's hard to find the right stuff that you're looking for.
Listen, if we bottle something and it's got the B word on it, it's going to have to be something truly special.
Okay.
If we got our hands on some 15-year-old Heaven Hill juice, maybe.
Right.
But we're not going to be bottling 10, 12-year-old bourbon for crazy prices,
right.
None of that stuff. So one thing we noticed is simply that we have the ability to bring in stuff, really, truly unique casks that have been sitting around untouched at a price that beats any major, because we don't have sales reps, we don't have state managers,
right.
We don't have a corporate office. Like we have
you don't have infrastructure to support.
We don't have any infrastructure. So we I love Rum Runner, and you can get great Belizean rum from Rum Runner for $150. Well, Can
you let us in a little bit on how you go about, because you got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old rum. I mean, you didn't pick these 14 or 16 years ago. How do you go about picking a bottle? Some of our listeners out there have no idea how this process goes. As do I have no idea. So can you tell us a little bit about this process?
We are approaching, or we have approached quite a few. We've approached sherry bodegas, we've approached mezcaleros, we've approached cognac companies to see if they'll sell us some barrels. I just want to bring, as I've said a million times, I just want to bring cool shit to Texas. So I don't care what it is. We obviously couldn't call it cognac. We'd call it brandy from the cognac region of France. So the educated consumer would know it's cognac, but we can't call it cognac.
We can't call it that, yeah.
We've approached several Scotch producers, and we're going to be going to Scotland in August to pick out a few Scotch barrels and see if we can convince them to sell to us. We've done the same thing with rum. We've approached Hampton. We've approached a bunch of different rum distilleries to see if they'll sell us some bulk rum. Most of them sell to one company out of Europe, and we've approached everybody. I just want to. So they sent us samples. We tasted through about 20 different samples. We sent them back. They sent back more samples, and we finally found 6 barrels that we loved.
So are these sourced from different companies?
They're all
under your label?
Right. So the Guyana was distilled at Diamond Distillery, the only distillery in Guyana. Foursquare Distillery in Barbados. There's actually a few in Barbados. We're looking at some samples from Mount Gay as well.
Wow.
Even some dead distilleries that are no longer around. We found some 30-year-old Enmore, some 27-year-old Eiflut. These are distilleries that are long gone. They don't exist anymore, but they've got some old barrels literally just sitting around in a warehouse. So we jumped on them. The Belize is from Traveler's Distillery. We taste it. We loved it. We've got very little overhead just to get it bottled and brought in, imported, and we get to bring cool stuff to market. So that if we can bring a 16-year-old, you try to buy a 16-year-old bourbon, tell me you're not paying $200 for it right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So 119 for the Guyana, 16 years old. The Barbados should be around 110, and I think the Belize is 115. But they're literally the slimmest margins you can take without overhead. And it's only going to get cheaper because as we continue to expand and establish this, it should be a bit easier to bring these things in. But we really are at the end of an era for rarity. So used to, you could literally, anytime you're going from Dallas to Houston, you could stop in at a mom-and-pop liquor store and a hole in the wall and find something that's been sitting there for a decade. Dusties is what we call them. And that's all been picked over now.
Right. People have found those.
People have found them. We're out of the era of Dusties, with a few exceptions. But primarily, if you want to get something in, you just have to get it in.
Yeah.
So we're working on it, quite a few fun things, and this will help fund us starting up a second event next fall. And
Chris, you know that I like to be helpful at all times. If ever you need anyone to go to Mont Gay or Barbados or St. Lucia and do some sampling for you, on boots on the ground,
sure,
I'm available.
Yeah,
so if you want to send me, I'm available.
We are. I'll keep you in mind.
Okay, good to know.
We're taking a crew in August to Scotland. Now we can't call it Scotch if it's bottled here. We'll just call it single malt.
Right.
But
you can tell where you sourced it from.
Correct. You can say 12-year-old single malt from Scotland.
Right. You just
it's
can't
Scotch. You just can't call it Scotch if it's not bottled there. So we'll
exactly.
and we're looking at some fantastic vintage single casks of sherry and port and Madeira, and those things can't be called those things.
Right.
So we'll call them fortified wine from port.
There you go. Fortified wine. I like it.
So
the Belize is my favorite so far.
So, and that's why I did it in this order.
Yes, I love it.
Now I can't wait to blow your mind with this Guyana. Mm-hmm. This Guyana is so bizarre and so interesting. If you like the unique, there's a great guy locally, a guy named Tyler Martin, who said it's the most complex and unique rum that I don't like to drink. Like he loved its complexity, he loved its uniqueness, he loved the nose.
But he doesn't want to go pour some at home.
But it's not like a daily drinker. It's a special occasion, like peated whiskey. You know, a lot of people, you have to be in the mood for peated whiskey.
I'm kind of that way. Like I have developed a real taste for it, but it's still not necessarily where I go first when I go, I think I'll have some whiskey. You know what I mean? I have to be in the mood for that.
Sure.
My mood for peated whiskey is more often than not.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
I'm the same way, Ian. I prefer. I'm a. If you put it in front of me, I like it.
Yeah.
Ian, what happened to your arm there? A little scratch, a little road rash?
Oh, I was mountain biking.
Of course you were.
Now, here's the fun thing. My brother told me, hey, when you go around the corners, don't go to the outside like you normally do because it's all dusty and dry out here. And I did. And I immediately washed out and hit the ground like this. And then I thought to myself as I got up, dusted myself off, I thought, I have pads right here on my backpack that would have stopped that.
Yeah.
So then I put my pads on and never wrecked again.
Of course. That's the way that works.
That's the way it works.
And with that, we will take a break and come right back. We have one more rum to try, and then we got to talk whiskey because we have a whiskey expert on the show. So stand by. We'll get there. I promise. It's Smoking and Toasting. We'll be right back.
All right. I'm going to go pick another cigar.
Do it.
Say what? Oh, you're going to get another cigar. Yeah, go for it. We'll wait for you to come back.
Oh man, my nipples just got hard. What's happening right now?
It makes you want to hear like one of those Barry White voices come in like,
"Hey,
hello,
baby."
Yeah. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Oh, yeah. Show number 190. This show's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. Ian, during the break, you went to get another cigar. So talk to me a little bit about the one you just finished. What was your overall take on
finishing
on that?
this one? This was the TAA exclusive Tatuaje 2020. And this is a cappuccino and cedar bomb all the way down.
Nice.
Like, there are other great little flavors that show up here and there, but that is the bulk of what I get out of this, and it's been absolutely delicious all the way through.
That's kind of like two great tastes that taste great together, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, wasn't that the old
and it goes
Reese's
great
peanut
with
butter
the
cup?
beers that we've had.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Well, we're going to do a little more tasting here. We have one more rum to try, but I'm going to change up and go whiskey before
let's
we
do it.
So I brought this one in, and
Palate cleanser, as
I
I
don't know
like
if
to
you
say.
got that. Let me try it again.
There you
Not
go.
bad.
Nice.
Not bad.
Got that one.
I brought this one in, and I thought it was interesting. You said, Chris, you had this, but it had been quite a while. So I thought we'll try a little bit of this. I've got some very tall cups, but I'll still pour a little sample in there for you.
Appreciate it.
This is the George Dickel Barrel Select. And I'll be honest, I had read about the George Dickel Bottled in Bond, and I went looking for that. Wasn't able to find it. So I decided on this one instead because it just looked really, really intriguing. What's your memory of this from when you tasted it before?
Well, if I'm not
something you
mistaken,
liked,
I
right?
believe it's their highest end offering. You know, like Jack Daniel's Barrel Select or their barrel proof. From what I understand, I think this is Dickel's higher end
Right.
cask selection.
A little harder to do the nose in these tall cups, but wow,
Yeah.
it's a very interesting nose, though.
Yeah. So one thing I recall about this is I believe it's lower proof. Yeah, it's a 86 proof, 43%. It could benefit from a touch more.
From a touch more, yeah.
Yeah. So the bottle and bond is 13 years old and it is 100 proof.
Yes, that's what I was looking for. I just couldn't track a bottle down.
You can really pick up on the Flintstone vitamins in this. So this is a distinct indicator of all Dickel liquid, Dickel juice. Is their they've got a Flintstone vitamin note.
It's
And
not an unpleasant thing.
some people hate it. Some people like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of older Dickel. I think they're as silly as the name is. I like a little Dickel, you know.
You've just invited a comment from Alan Denny. So, Ian, I see you twirling the bottle of gin there on the Skype. That
Good
looks
proof
like,
on that gin. 104 proof. That's pretty nice.
Ooh, that was a nice effect too.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
pretty
that.
big.
I like that. The Barrel Select, I think, is interesting. It's good. It is hard to get away from, especially once you characterize it as Flintstone vitamin. It's hard to get away from that flavor.
Well, there's also a touch of tobacco there I really enjoy.
Yeah, which I like very much so. Yeah, very much so. I actually read a really glowing review of this as well as the Bottled and Bond. They both got high marks for flavor. So yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. It's definitely got. What are the notes I'm getting apart from the Flintstone vitamin here? It's
There's a candied sweetness there that's
Yeah.
pretty nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and you mentioned the tobacco, the that sort of dark, almost pipe tobacco type of vibe to it, which I really like. Very good. Ian, have you poured the gin, or are you still pouring?
I have. I already tasted it.
And so talk to me.
How syrupy is it?
It's syrupier than you would think from a gin. It smells amazing.
Lots
It's
of
got
lemon.
a really bright botanical and fruit kind of smell to it.
Mhm.
Yeah, looking at it, I
The-
bet there's a ton of lemon peel.
There's a very lemon kind of fruit to it, but it's got a sweetness to it, like sweet lemon, not bitter lemon. And that's you nailed it right off the bat there. It's very good, though. There's also a lot of that char aftertaste that I'm really enjoying on it.
This is what happens when you bring a whiskey expert on the show. He can tell you what you're tasting when you're 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
Even
That's-
before you taste
even
it.
Just
before
for
you
the
taste
record,
it.
I have never claimed to be an expert.
Well, you were proclaimed an expert.
I was
though,
proclaimed an expert
by Texas Monthly Magazine.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
a pretty that's not exactly a
I back it up,
inside
though, man.
source.
Cruz likes to tease you about it, but I back it up. I think
Yeah, he
you're all right.
fucking does.
I think you might know what you're talking about.
Well,
You have a clue.
listen, we have you on the show when we need a whiskey expert on the show, or also just when we miss seeing you and like having
Of
you on.
course, I love you guys.
But we love having you on the show, and it's always a.
Adam doesn't say much, but I love him too.
Well, he's a cool guy. He just doesn't have a microphone in front of him like the rest of us. We should get him that producer mic. You always get the producer that mic that doesn't sound very good. Like if you're listening to Joe Rogan or something, he checks in with the producer, and the producer's always like,
Yeah, I found the image for that, Joe.
Yeah.
I'll put it up on the screen.
it's that kind of thing. We'll just get him that really, really interesting mic. Ian, are you making a martini, sir?
right in front of us.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, yes, I am, sir.
Well,
Because why would you have a gin if you're not going to make a martini?
Hilarious.
You are man among men, my friend.
Did you mention you had a list?
I do, and this segment, since we actually are tasting some whiskey, in fact,
You got me a little lubed up. I'm feeling.
while we're doing
feeling
that,
catty.
While we're
Got
doing
some
that, why don't
opinions.
you find us another whiskey to taste from one of the
Whiskey or rum?
Let's go with another whiskey in this segment.
Let me give you something
brought.
else altogether.
Okay,
This
all
is neither whiskey nor rum. This is it's called Balcones Rumble.
Mm-hmm.
So as I mentioned earlier, I think you guys should do a Eureka Heights,
Right.
thing. This was our collaborations with Balcones.
Nice.
It's Oloroso Sherry, fully matured, ex-rumble, which is made from mission figs, turbinado sugar, and Texas wildflower honey. So it's not technically whiskey, but it's like if brandy and whiskey had a baby together with rum
I'm excited to
and
try this.
and a devil's three-way.
I'm very excited to try this.
So this is really interesting.
Okay. Awesome.
I give one there to Adam on the Wheels of Steel.
Excellent. Thank you. Here you go, sir. All right. So while we're doing that, there's
I freaking hate you, Jessica. First of all, I have never, I'll say it again, I've never claimed to be an expert. I am being humble. You freaking jerk.
Yeah, well, we're the ones that call you the expert. Us and
Thank
and
you.
Texas Monthly
Thank
Magazine.
you.
In fairness
Stupid
to Chris,
Jessica.
in fairness to Chris, he has never. Ian, I hope the camera's on you there, Ian, while you're doing that.
I see he's
because
got his
that
olives.
looks freaking awesome.
He
dude.
planned this.
That is the great boy. You gotta be
Oh,
out of the
baby.
studio more often. This is very
Is
entertaining.
that tonic water? What is that?
Mm-hmm.
It looks a little bit carbonated.
No, that's when you shake it so that it forms ice crystals.
Nice.
Nice. Look at you, you boozy bitch. I love it.
That's great.
Put that
So-
pinky out.
Pinky out, baby.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this
This
is
is so
Oloroso
good.
Sherry. It's basically a rum and brandy made from mission figs. It's just fantastic.
I love this. This is just absolutely delicious. Let me show this to the camera again, because this is something we can find.
No, it's gone. You can't find it.
It's gone.
Yeah,
Damn
yeah.
it.
Now we're going to be going
it.
back June 8th to Balcones to do some more wine finished rumble versions. They're so bloody brilliant. And knowing how much you love tequila, this weekend at 4 area Specs at Specs Smith Street, the Bay Area Specs, the Woodland Specs, and there's one off of I-10 towards Katy that those 4 locations are going to get the oldest barrel ever released from Balcones, more than 6 years old, fully matured in X tequila.
Nice.
So if you are a tequila fan,
This sounds like my kind of thing.
white pepper and just it's
Yes.
this overwhelmingly beautiful barrel of I think they took an old Añejo barrel and just filled it full of rumble, and it's gorgeous. So we'll have plenty of that this Saturday it releases.
There's a lot of lists that I find on the internet because I spend an inordinate amount of time on the internet, and some of it is actually at legitimate sites that don't have bikini photos.
Yeah, I was about
on
to
it.
say, where's this going?
Yeah. But
Lots
one
of hubs. You spend a lot of
that's right.
time on
lots
certain
of
hubs.
Yes,
Yeah.
lots of hubs. But there's one of the ways I think that it seems certain if you're a website to get clicks is to put up lists about whatever, like things that people like. So take whiskey, for example. So that's why a website like businessinsider.com will post their list of 10 whiskeys that you have to try according to whiskey experts. Can we just get a camera shot of Ian, because this is
I'm so proud of him.
if we had a photo of what this show's all about, that would be it right there.
Enjoying life.
That is a happy man enjoying life on Smoking and Toasting.
But before you
I love it.
go into the list, let me ask you both a question. How many cigars have you the most you've smoked in one day?
It would be when we were in Honduras for me.
Yeah, definitely. I probably topped 8 or 9.
I hit 6 this week. I haven't had cigars in 2 months because I had my teeth cleaned, and I always get a lot of anxiety about the staining. So I laid off cigars a while, but when my humidors, plural, 3 of them, when they reach capacity, I've got all these. I'm like, I got to do something.
I got to smoke.
So this.
I like how your humidor keeps gaining cigars even if you're not smoking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
My humidor actually has a similar problem, but it's the opposite.
you can't keep them
I keep smoking cigars, and the humidor keeps like getting more empty.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you did a 6 cigar day?
Diplomatico sent me a box of
Wow.
cigars. They did some Nicaraguan sticks with somebody for Diplomatico rum, and they're absolutely fantastic. So a couple of days ago, we invited the family over, and I sat in a chair for 8 hours.
Nice.
I sat in a chair
That's
for
what
8 hours.
That's what I call a great day.
And one cigar after the next,
Yeah.
and I woke up feeling great the next day. It was a unique situation in which you definitely overdo it, but you hydrate enough that you stave it off.
6 is a lot, even for me. 6 is a lot. 6 is a lot. Ian, I just
lit up the Intemperance Whiskey Rebellion.
Oh, nice. I have had that cigar. It's wonderful.
It's a decent steak, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good overall, and I thought with the barrel resting
yes.
that this endured, I thought it might
be
go well. And I
might
got
be
to tell you, it
appropriate.
does.
So
And it has, like, with the addition of the olive in there, it actually brings some of that fruit down to a little more of a dark fruitiness.
mm-hmm.
It's really nice. You don't really taste the olive so much, but I can't wait to see what these olives are going to taste
I
like.
bet they're going to taste great. So according to the experts,
All right.
and the experts in this case have been defined by Business Insider. I don't know how they are qualified to pick experts on whiskey.
Sure.
So this is why I didn't want to do this list until we had you here to comment on the validity of these 10 entries. They're saying these are 10 whiskeys you have to try,
Okay.
according to air quotes
to
here,
try?
the expert. Yes.
Well, okay. My opinion is you should try everything.
All
So, but I've got some thoughts. Go
All
ahead.
right, so here's the actual headline.
Okay.
The 10 best whiskey brands
Bullshit.
you need to try, according to 2 renowned experts.
Wait, does it list who those 2 experts are?
I'm looking. Heather Green.
Oh, she's fantastic. Milam and
Okay.
Green. They have a Texas whiskey here. She's she is one of the foremost leading female foremost leading experts, period, but she's a very, very strong female influence. She's a tremendous pioneer for women in the industry, and there's a great video that I think you'd love on YouTube in which there's some company, I forget what the company is, but they taste test her blind on shitty whiskey and great whiskey, and it's a whole series. They'll do it on store-bought cheeses and rare cheeses.
Right. To see how they stack up against each other with an expert.
Great prosciutto and like knockoff prosciutto.
Right.
And she did one on whiskey that was so phenomenal and hit the nail on the head. Heather Green is I couldn't be more impressed, and the respect flows out of me for her.
All right, so Business Insider found an expert then.
Okay,
All right, how about Susan Riegler?
don't know who that is.
It
Pass.
says here she's a world-renowned bourbon expert, lifelong Kentuckian,
No.
and former president of the Bourbon Women Association.
Okay.
She was a restaurant critic and has written multiple books on bourbon essentials and the history of whiskey. He has an upcoming release that she's authoring with Peggy No Stevens called "Which Fork Do I Use with My Bourbon?" That sounds like a book I would buy.
Peggy's awesome.
All right.
Peggy's awesome. Peggy
All right.
No Stevens.
So here are the 10 in the order that they're numbered here.
Okay.
So we start now with number 10, and that is, hang on, I was getting back to my spot, the red, yellow, and green spot Irish whiskeys.
Oh, 100%.
And I would agree with this because I have
Fantastic.
not had the yellow and the green, but I've had the red. We've had it on the show, and it's been spectacular. Ian, you brought that in, didn't you, as I recall?
Which one?
The red spot Irish whiskey?
Yes.
You brought that in on the show.
By the way,
as I
that's
recall.
3 different whiskeys, so they've already broken
Right.
their list.
So
No, wait.
and
Back
that
up. We had that when we were at the New Potato.
that's right. Oh, that's
We
what
had
it
that
was.
at the New Potato.
Yeah, and it was I think our favorite of the day that we tested. At number 9, Suntory Whiskey Toki.
No.
See, I wouldn't have gone for the Toki if you're going to go back to one of the more traditional brands. Because the Tokis they're more pedestrian.
It's
right?
recent. Well, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say pedestrian. It's recent. It is great. It's great for a lot of cocktails. Tons of banana note influence. It's not meant. Excuse me. It's not meant as a sipping whiskey. It's meant as a blending tool. And I wouldn't put it up there for necessity. I haven't heard the rest of the list, but as far as necessity, I think the red, yellow, and green spot are fantastic examples of the diversity in Irish whiskeys, the brilliance of how great and underappreciated Irish whiskey is. Toki, meh.
Not your favorite Japanese whiskey?
No.
All right.
No.
At number 8, the Glenmorangie Nectar d'Or.
100%.
I love that. It's wonderful.
Nectar, I always thought it was d'Or.
Maybe it is.
I had their assistant master distiller on, Brendan McCarran, on my show, and
how did he pronounce it?
Nectar d'Or.
Nectar d'Or.
I also learned that it's Quinta Ruban, not Quinta Ruben.
Now, Quinta Ruban, I knew.
Yeah, I didn't.
But this one,
But you guys had David Stewart in here too, right?
Yes.
Not David Stewart. David. His name on Facebook is David Glenmorangie David Blackmore.
Yes.
Allardyce.
No. Allardyce is Glenfiddich.
No. Sorry, that's Glenfiddich.
Yeah.
Not all Scottish people look the same. Racist. David Blackmore, yeah. So Nectar d'Or, fantastic example of great single. I would actually recommend the Quinta Ruban or the La Santa over as a quintessential Scotch. It is just such a beautiful sub $50 bottle. Can't complain.
At number 7, J. Henry and Sons, small batch bourbon.
No. That could be removed entirely. There are better examples. There are better examples of classic Kentucky bourbon. You could throw Bullet in there in place of him.
This is why it's so important to have Chris on when we do a list like this. Ian.
Jay Henry can suck it.
It makes complete and total sense. That's awesome. All right. At number 6, E.H. Taylor, single barrel, bottled in bond bourbon.
100%.
100%.
Fantastic bottle. In fact, I've got a bottle of it right here.
So here's what I love about having Chris on the show.
Fantastic bottle.
So jealous.
So when you have Chris on the show, he doesn't take the middle of the road. It's either 100% or they can suck it.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people think that I'm too middle of the road at times, and I'm like,
see,
I'm honest.
I don't find you that way at all. You're either all in or you don't want any part of it.
Sure, it's black or white.
That's the way I see you. At number 5, Johnny Drum Private Stock.
Yeah, absolutely not.
It's a small batch, aged a minimum of 3 years, 101 proof.
Yeah, a couple years ago, Willet actually is now all their distillate. And listen, I love Willet. I love their impact on the industry. They were bottling stuff before anyone else. However, their current young stuff is just not up to snuff. So I put that on a shirt. Their current young stuff is not up to snuff.
This is the kind of insight I could not have offered without having Chris on the show. See,
Johnny Drum is very lackluster.
So for people who want to critique us referring to you as a whiskey expert, I offer this as proof. The guy knows what he's talking about.
And the last one you mentioned that I naysayed, I offered up Bullet as a replacement. For this one, I'd offer up Elijah Craig Small Batch.
Nice.
94 proof, bump
that
and
is
proof.
A wonderful.
That's a great
wonderful
whiskey.
And usually 8 to 10 years old. So you're getting a decent age on it. You're getting a decent proof on it, and it's sub $30, usually $26, $27. I would recommend Elijah Craig Small Batch over Johnny Drum.
At number 4,
I think it's Johnny Ho Hum. Actually, I think that's how you pronounce it.
See, he's not middle of the road at all. He tells you exactly how he feels.
You never know how you feel.
At number 4, the Westland peated single malt.
100%.
100%.
Yeah. So one of the best, arguably the best single malts produced in the U.S. is out of Seattle at Westland. Westland makes a sherry. They make a peated. What Westland does, that was the first time. So it's very common in distillation. It's very, very common in distillation to reverse osmosis filter your tap water from your local city source.
Right.
Kentucky loves to talk about Kentucky limestone water, but that's mostly bullshit. It's just a sales technique. Most of it comes from the public water source in Louisville, which actually runs even as far south, like 100 miles south, over to Jim Beam. They get their water from the Louisville water source, which is just tap water. But it goes through a reverse osmosis process, which sanitizes it. I literally went to Westland and saw them put a garden hose in their tanks.
Wow.
Like it is unfiltered tap water, but Seattle has some of the best tap water in the U.S.
Has some great tap water. Yeah.
So
that's one of the reasons there's so many great breweries in Seattle, because the water that they start with is so pristine.
Seattle's killing it. Westland is killing it. They make some of the best single malt in the U.S. Hands down.
At number 3, Colkegan American Single Malt.
What the? That's no.
No? At number 3.
He laughed at that one.
That
was awesome.
It's produced by Santa Fe Spirits in New Mexico. Single malt whiskey made from 100% barley mash, smoked using mesquite wood, which gives it a smooth, nutty flavor profile.
If they're using smooth in their description, I'm out.
Okay.
Smooth doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Our culture.
You're not saying you don't like smooth.
No,
you're saying it's a meaningless term.
Correct. Yeah. So basically, our culture has been brought up on shots. And when you're drinking spirits neat and you shoot it and you swallow it immediately, it burns. So we've become inclined to describe less burn as being more smooth, but that doesn't mean anything.
Right, because that's how I would we've talked about the Skelly tequila on here, and we described that as smooth. But what we really mean is, as tequila goes, lots of flavor, not much burn.
Yeah.
You know?
And smooth is an undescriptor, and it's also a false indicator of quality. If something burns, it doesn't indicate a poorer made product.
Right.
It usually indicates a higher proof.
Right.
But a higher proof is universally recognized as the closer you get to cast strength, the more you're getting a raw product.
Right.
Straight
as
from the
opposed
barrel.
to something
yeah.
that's
and
that's
also
impressive.
mesquite is not a great flavoring tool for spirits. It's
I like it to cook steaks, but
yes, correct. When it comes to spirits, it's arguably going to be written off 9 times out of 10. So if it's described as smooth, and I've had it, I'm not a fan. I wouldn't put that as a quintessential whiskey for you to try. 4 Roses, small batch. 4 Roses single barrel. 4 Roses cask strength. 4 Roses is arguably the most current innovative. I mean, between them and Buffalo Trace, they're fighting for. Brown Foreman's doing a great job too. But if I would replace that with 4 Roses small batch.
4 Roses small batch. At number 2, and this one I'm not going to pronounce correctly, is it Catoctin Creek? Catostin?
I don't know how to pronounce it either, but Catoctin.
Catoctin.
Yeah.
Catoctin or Catossin Creek Roundstone Rye. Have you had it?
I've had it. It's not bad. They do a lot of good things. They were supposed to be at the social this year, and they didn't show at all.
Oh.
But they
and yet Yellow Rose did. How is that happen?
That's funny.
I don't know.
Yeah, they I don't have an issue with them. I've had their product. It's good. I wouldn't list it as a quintessential
right.
or you've
or
got
a must try.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it as a must try. I agreed with the H. Taylor.
At number 1, Old Forester Rye.
100%.
100%.
Yeah, that's the 100 proof rye. That's about a $20 bottle. Old Forester can do no wrong. There was an episode I did with their president and CEO Campbell Brown. We talked through the Old Forester lineup. Old Forester rye at 100 proof is $20. Old Forester 1920, Old Forester 1910. You literally, if you are on a budget and getting into the hobby, it is a safe bet to purchase any of the Old Forester line. It is the span of $20 to $50. There's at least 6 marks in between. Mm-hmm. You cannot go wrong, and the rye is fantastic.
You heard it here, folks. If people want to go back and listen to that interview, where do they go? To your website?
Yeah, so you can go to mywhiskeyneat.com. People always ask me, why My Whiskey Neat when the show's called Whiskey Neat? That's because I like My Whiskey Neat.
And
it was probably about 10 episodes ago.
Okay.
So about 10 weeks ago, maybe a little more.
So go back around 10, 12 episodes, you should find it,
We
right?
had Campbell Brown on. We talked specifically about it. You know, it was an unsponsored episode. I didn't take any money from them. It was just my love for that brand. Old Forester is one of my all-time favorite regularly available products.
That's awesome. All right, we got to take a break, come back with our final segment. We do have one more beer that I want us to get to, which is this other IPA that I brought in, Chris, and I hope it's still...
I'm super excited.
I hope it's still cold.
I've got a 1991, the year Seinfeld came out.
Yes.
Wild Turkey I want to taste with you too.
All right,
so.
good. And we got one more rum we got
That's
to
right.
taste. So this is going to be a very full segment, and we'll be back for it in just a moment. It's Smoking and Toasting. It's Smokin' and Toastin'. This is the program that's all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Ian, Chris Hart may know a lot about whiskeys, and you may be the great, gin martini maker. But I have a bottle of something, or I should say a jar of something here, that I am so excited about. It's almost more exciting than all of these things you guys have been presenting. Before the show, my buddy, Rowdy Yates, the famous Houston country radio DJ, brought me a bottle of his, or a jar here, of his homemade salsa. And let me tell you, this stuff, I told him, I said, you have to start making. I said, I will buy it. I'll pay for it. I'll buy as much of this as you can make. And he's like, yeah, but then it becomes work. I just do it for,
You got some chips?
He's one of those guys.
We should do it.
I wish if I had known, it's jalapeno based. And if I had known that I would have this, I would have definitely brought a huge bag of chips and we'd have thrown down. But I don't have any chips.
We have a fellow friend of ours, Randy Svetlik. He's an admin at Houston Bourbon Society that he's doing one himself, and he's actually turning it into a business. It's called Gunslinger.
Nice.
And the last batch was habanero and serrano pepper based.
Love it.
I would love a little blind taste off here in studio.
We should
I have
totally
a
do a
couple
salsa
buddies
show.
that started hot sauce companies. I've got a friend of mine named Trevi that started Ashburn Hot Sauce, which is quite good.
Yeah.
If you see it,
Ring
it
Sting
is quite
hot
good.
sauce.
It's very good. And then my friend Matt Crow has his hot sauce company, which is, I'll think of the name in a little bit, but
Matt Crow's hot sauce. I'm sorry. I said Matt Crow's hot sauce, but I just made that up.
That looks
That's not what
incredible.
he
I don't
calls it.
actually know.
I have to think of the name.
I wanted to mention, by the way, since you guys were talking about taste testing, I had this idea this week. Ian, do you think this would work? What if we put out an invite, and you'd probably have to tap some of the people you know to make sure we had enough to do this the first time. What if we put out an invite to homebrewers to send us a couple of bottles of the best they've made?
That's
right?
actually a great idea.
And then we did a homebrew blind taste test.
100%.
Picked our favorites, talked about what the flavor profiles and stuff were. I think that'd be, I don't know, I think it'd be fun.
Great idea.
Do you know enough homebrewers?
That's 100%. Yes, I think that's 100% a great idea, but we're going to have to put it 2 to 3 months out so they have time to brew their best.
But
Totally,
you guys are coming up quickly in 10 weeks. Episode 200
from show 200.
I think we should do it episode 200, and you could post in the Houston craft groups saying, "Hey, if you're a home brewer, we're about to have a blind taste test for Houston's best home brewing." And boom, you have 10 guests on.
It's 10 weeks away. That'd give everybody time.
I think it's a smart idea. You guys could basically cement best homebrew beer in Houston officially.
I like it. All right, so we'll talk more about that after the show, but this is one of the first times you get to hear that sound from Bare Bottle Brewing Company, because they generally have always gone to bottles. During the pandemic, a lot of places that were bottling have gone to cans, and the reason is because of the ease of transportation, the store shelf, if they're getting them put on store shelf space is easier, and they have a tendency to just make it easier for them to get the beer out there.
Sure.
So even a company named Bare Bottle, which is known for great bottled IPAs, has now shifted at least some of their production to can. This is their hazy IPA called Galactic DJ. This is a company that puts out different IPAs every month, and they're just I'll tell you, I've yet to try one that I didn't like. I've had some that I like more than others, but I've yet to try one that I didn't think was exceptional. And so I wanted to try this, Chris, while you were here, because I know you're a fan of the hazy IPA, so I thought the timing was perfect. And this is Bare Bottle is easily in my top 5 favorite breweries. So Galactic DJ. Let me see what it says.
There's a bit of citrus there, not quite orange, more of a nectarine.
Accidentally or recently discovered by our brewers, Galactic DJ is a juicy exoplanet in the interstellar hop system galaxy. So that's what they say. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so on the nose, I'm getting a kind of a nectarine.
Yes.
Definitely a citrus, but not an orange.
You can
right?
see in the label there. I don't know if that's an orange or a nectarine, but they've got
Let me see.
like a planet Saturn look with an orange or a nectarine.
We've
as
got
the,
tons of information there.
as
That's
the
great.
planet,
Recently discovered. Yep. It does not say hazy IPA. It says hazy IPA. Okay, so yeah, I don't know what the citruses they're using, but
Well, I will tell you once you sample it, it's definitely tangerine, not orange.
tangerine's a good word.
And tangerine has that really distinctive taste that a lot of times when we taste these very citrusy, hazy IPAs, I get a real mixed citrus vibe. I don't get that from this. This is tangerine.
Yeah, I like it,
Mm-hmm.
but I could probably have one. Like I couldn't drink two in a row.
It's not my favorite bear bottle for
Correct.
sure.
Yeah.
Because I've had some of theirs that were just among the best IPAs I've ever
I'd
had.
put it in the slightly above middle of the road. Like not bad. It's definitely good.
I would say that this would be a great one to open. You got a friend over, you're sampling, you want to, half of that can would be a great,
Shared bottle.
tasting shared
Yeah.
bottle. Exactly.
Agreed.
Exactly. Kind of like the Bombers. Ian, I knew you were going to go for the Morning Buzz.
Coffee stout. That looks beautiful. Love a good coffee beer.
I used to be on a radio show called The Morning Buzz.
Morning Buzz Coffee
The Morning
Stout.
Buzz?
The Morning
I
Buzz.
didn't know that.
Mud Shark Brewery.
So you know Rod Ryan?
So
I
I love what
predated
it says on here. It says beer can logic.
Mm-hmm.
It says these cans are better for the same reason they don't make kegs out of glass.
I know you're looking at me. I get it.
If you
I
ever
get it.
drop a keg, you'll remember this and say "good thing for Mud Shark" or something like that.
Or something like that. Good thing for Mud Shark. All right, Ian, tell me what you get out of this. This is a coffee. Is it a coffee porter? Remind me again.
Stout.
This is a coffee stout,
Coffee stout. Okay.
and it pours out in a very dark, not very carbonated liquid. It
Yeah, that
says
looks
on the can.
light.
Let's see. It says stout coffee, your spouse. Some things are definitely better when they are rich.
Nice.
It looks not rich. It looks not very thick. It looks more of a lighter stout.
We're going to find that out in a minute. Mud Shark takes that spirit to heart. Dark roast coffee beans, chocolate notes, and a smoothness unrivaled. There's that smoothness unrivaled in their way through this, make their way through this decadent stout. So we're going to see how decadent this is. It does look a little on the thin side. I have to agree. It smells like fresh roast coffee. Like, I don't even get a lot of beer on the nose. It just smells very much like coffee. Here's the deal.
Don't hold
I
back,
think
brother.
this is more coffee than stout.
Okay. Well, that would explain why it's a little thinner then.
Yes, it's more coffee than stout. It tastes really good, actually. It tastes like good, rich brewed coffee.
Cold brew coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the
I don't
ABV?
really like cold brew coffee, but this has a little bit of beer in there to back it up, which makes me kind of like it.
Less than 8. I'm gonna say 6 to
Yeah.
8.
What's the ABV on it, Ian? Did
Yeah,
you
it's
say on the
probably
can?
pretty small.
6
It
to
doesn't
8.
taste that huge, 6%.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, that explains it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a light stout. Not a rich stout at all.
That's very much
Well, it's
on
like
the
a
light side
Guinness.
of stout.
Guinness is a
I gotta
lighter
tell you,
stout.
I'm a little disappointed. I'm a little disappointed in the mouthfeel from it.
Thin, right?
It might be a little too cold, though. It's been sitting in my ice over here because everything out here warms up so quick.
Right.
But I'm willing to bet it's going to go well with my cigar because,
Oh yeah.
coffee and cigar go
That-
really well together.
You can't.
Mouthfeel-wise, it really doesn't scream stout to me, even though it is that stout.
It seems light, right? Light and carbonated.
It's less carbonated than you'd think.
Oh really?
But you would say that about a Guinness too, right? It's got a lighter mouthfeel, but
Yeah,
it's,
but there's more of a smokiness to a Guinness, you know?
Okay, fair
Yeah, in
enough.
my mind, I can literally see in the glass from the video feed, it looks like a more carbonated, lighter stout, not thick and heavy like you'd expect.
So-
like from what's the one that does the birthday cake and the Prairie Artisan
from
Ales?
Prairie Artisan
yeah,
Ales,
Where
yeah.
those are like thick syrup bombs.
Oh, it
No, this is
almost pours out of the
nothing
can
yeah,
in chunks.
this looks like the opposite of that.
This is honestly a little disappointing in the beer department, but kind of nice in the coffee department. I don't know.
Well, maybe that's why it's a good morning buzz. Maybe it's aptly named then.
It's, I like a lot of other coffee beers better than I like this.
Okay,
Sure.
fair enough. By the way, I
So-
just had.
But it's not a bad drinker. It's a lighter drinking coffee stout than you would expect.
I just had this week one of the Buffalo Bayou Wake and Bake, which is a blonde with coffee.
Oh, that's a great one.
That is
yeah.
a fantastic beer. It doesn't seem like a blonde ale with coffee would even work, and it just so totally
pulls it
does.
off.
So totally does. It's fantastic. We got to get those guys on the show. We have invited them to come on.
I know Rasul. I can shoot him a text like,
All right.
"Hey man,
Shoot him a text.
don't
Ask
yellow rose this."
yeah. Don't yellow roses. We're fans. So, Chris.
The more I drink this, the less I'm liking it. Actually,
Oh, interesting.
Oof.
That's never a good thing.
No.
The ones you like are the ones that you start out thinking that's okay, and by the time you've had a little more, you're like, I'm really kind of digging this.
Yeah,
you know?
that's like our friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah. A few drinks in, I'm really glad we're friends.
you start off a little, whoa, what's happening here?
Okay, that's good. That works. While you choose, are we going to do rum next?
Yeah,
or
let's hit
whiskey?
this last Guyana.
All right,
Let's hit this last Guyana.
That sounds perfect. While you do that, I wanted to give a huge shout out. We've actually mentioned and name checked a number of notable Houston breweries today, but I want to name check and shout out to one of my very favorites because they're doing something incredibly cool tomorrow. St. Arnold Brewery, right here in our hometown of Houston, who make great beers, and we love them dearly. Tomorrow they have teamed up with the
Give this to Adam.
Best Friends Animal Society, and they're handing out more than 19,000 pounds of dog food for anyone who's been in financial distress because of the
Could they not give out human food?
Well, dogs.
Oh no,
gotta
it's
eat
for
too.
the dogs. Is
Dogs
what you're saying.
gotta
Oh,
eat
I
too.
see. I
Yeah,
see. I thought
dogs
they
gotta
were.
eat too. So people who have dogs, that might become like one of the tough things
Sure.
to continue to pay for when you're.
Can you imagine that choice? Either I eat or my dog eats? Fuck that.
Yeah, I initially thought he was saying that they were giving out
No.
dog food for those who are hungry. I'm like,
Okay.
well, I could use some.
All right.
Just buy me a hot dog.
Let me back up here. Best Friends Animal Society
There you go.
is going to give out 19,000 pounds of free dog food, and they've teamed up with St. Arnold to do it. They'll be doing it at the brewery, and it'll be handed out to any pet owners who've been faced with financial hardship at this pet food drive. It's a nonprofit animal welfare organization. They work with shelters and no-kill shelters, and they're just offering this free dog food for pet owners. So you can get it from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. tomorrow at St. Arnold Brewing Company in Houston, if you're in the
Shout
greater
out to
Houston
Tommy
area.
Ainsworth. Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Yeah,
St.
so-
Arnold's is one of the best.
Yeah. So, those guys are just, they're innovative, and I've noticed that lately they seem to be coming out with new styles and new flavors even faster. It's like they've stepped up how often they release something new, which I think is really cool. I love their latest hazy that they released. It's really quite good. Not nearly as hazy as what we had today.
Yeah.
But it's fantastic. All right, so this is the Guyana rum. You said this is the one that sort of defies description.
Yeah, so this is the nerd lover's rum. It's tons of licorice, tons of anise, fantastic nose. The
nose is great.
We bought 3 barrels of Guyana. They're all individually barreled, so this is the highest proof barrel, 109 proof. Everything else goes down from there.
Easily the funkiest of the 3 rums that you brought in today.
I love that you use the term funky because funky is one of those flavors. It's not like the funnest word for providing taste, but it's very apropos in a lot of situations.
And particularly
and
in
it's
this
not
case,
funky in a bad way. Funky
right.
can be very good.
It's got a funk to it, but that's a good thing, not a bad thing. Sometimes when you say, this tastes kind of funky, you don't mean that in a positive way. In this case, what you're describing as the funk is similar to what you might describe as dank in a beer.
Sure.
Love
a good dank beer.
Yes. Yeah. It's got real complexity to it. There's stuff going on that it's going to take you a while to figure out. So you're right. It becomes the rum nerd rum for sure. Am I seeing stuff floating in
Yeah,
there?
you can see tons of particulates. So, the oldest.
Do you get upset when I bring beer that has floaties?
I do, or Cruz does.
Well,
Cruz does.
I just don't like chewing my beer. That's all. That's all I'm saying. I don't like chewing my beer.
I don't mind it.
Ian brings
A
beer.
smoothie beer?
Oh no, that's different.
It implies chunks.
That's
like your
different.
orange juice with pulp. I love it.
I'm talking about when he brings a barley one that has. It feels like it has like chunks in it. You wonder, like, how old is this barley wine, really?
Yeah. Do you ever cellar age those St. Arnold's Bishop's
Yes.
barrel?
Oh, yeah.
Tons of chunks. Tons of chunks.
I have
Not a
Bishop's
fan.
Barrel back to quite a few numbers in my fridge.
Yeah.
It's time to drink them pretty soon.
I
Tons
do
of
love the
floaties.
Bishop's Barrel, but
I was kind of saving them for the 200.
yeah. I will say, when I pour an IPA into a glass that's got a lot of hop to it and it's got residue in the, I generally won't take that last drink. I'll generally dump that.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
and that's fair.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the sediment; it's the sliminess of it.
Well,
A
but
lot of times there's fermented yeast that's sitting around at the bottom of that canning line, and then you get a little bit of that in there, and it's too much.
But what Ian brings in that I'm referencing here is you're drinking the barley wine and suddenly something's stuck to your teeth. That, to me, is not what I'm looking for in a barley
Too
wine.
much.
That's called flavor for later.
I suppose it is.
When you drink your teeth, you go, oh, it tastes like beer.
I'm going to tell you that I think my favorite is probably the second one.
Okay.
But I
Belize.
love this in a rum nerd kind of way.
Sure. This is
In
my
other words,
favorite one.
If
This
I'm
is the peated Scotch of rum.
if I were to have a go-to of the three, it would be the second one, which was the Belize.
The
right?
Belize. Adam,
Yeah.
did you get one?
Yeah. But the Guyana, this is more like if I want to sit down and contemplate a rum.
Oh, yeah.
This is the way to
This
go.
makes me think about why
Yeah.
I got married, and this makes me pontificate on life. The mouthfeel, the oils, the oldest current still in the world distilling is a wooden still in Guyana called Port Morant, and it's a Morant, however you want to put it. But it just yields the weirdest profile. So
It's where the funkiness is coming
it
from.
coats your mouth. I think knowing Ian, I know that you're going to love this for its roller coaster of flavor profile. I think you're going to really love that. I feel like he's real into the weird.
There's an episode of the TV show Grace and Frankie with Jane Fonda where she's in a bar having a martini, and she says to the bartender, she says, I just don't understand why your martinis are so good. And the bartender says, I'll tell you the secret. I don't wash out the shaker. That's the secret. And it seems to me that
That's a dirty still.
that this rum in that old still, it's kind of like the pots and pans you have at home. The seasoned
The
ones
seasoning behind the skillet.
They make the
It's
best.
a season still.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thought process
Yeah.
behind the still. Is it's an old hardwood still. It's a wooden still, so it's picking up those yeast, those bacteria, those. I mean, they're the heat. You're cooking, you're seasoning that still with every run.
And you're cooking it right into the funky wonderfulness.
Love it.
Of this. This is you're right. This is the rum, the rum nerd rum of the three. The Belize would be my go-to, but I loved the first one too. Like, it was delicious. So
Yeah, that's what's fun about it. You
You're
taste
not-
people on the Barbados, you're like, this is great rum. Then you try the next one, you're like, holy shit, this one's actually
Yeah.
really good.
I love that moment when Chris realizes he's not on his show and he can actually like drop the S-bomb or
Oh, I cuss on my show.
Yeah, oh, okay.
I cuss on my show all the time.
They
Yeah.
just bleep you, right?
Yeah, they bleep for radio, but the podcast form is uncensored. We have an episode dropping tomorrow that there was quite a bit of language from one of our guests that I was worried about. But we
Did Dolph Lundgren swear?
a little bit.
All right, cool.
A little bit. He told a couple stories I thought
He's an interesting dude.
so fascinating.
He really is.
He told a couple stories that I thought his publicist was going to ask us to cut out. The first one, I'll tell you both real quick. One, he's from Sweden, I think.
I think that's right, yeah.
Sweden. And his dad was a military man. And when his sister and him first met a black man, they had never seen a black person before. They ran and hid under the bed. And for him, the innocence of a child and not being exposed, because you're in Austria or Sweden where everyone is blonde hair and blue-eyed, his reaction was interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 80s, everybody was, doing cocaine and partying and living a good life. The AIDS epidemic caused a lot of issues and concerns within Hollywood. It was like coronavirus. No one knew how bad it was. Is it
Right.
this bad? How can you get it? You can get it if you touch their hands or
Right.
so there's a lot of myths around AIDS. And he was dating a Jamaican actress and singer. I forget her name at the time, but she was Dolph Lundgren famously dated this artist from Jamaica, and when they had parties with Andy Warhol and all these famous New York artists, and when AIDS happened, they sold all of their furniture and their apartment, threw all their dishes away because they thought it was all infected. They were just this concern, and this was all before Corona hit.
Right.
So to hear this honest story about this time in the 80s when no one knew what to think of AIDS, the Dolph Lundgren interview is one of my favorites because he was just so fascinating as a human, and he couldn't be a nicer guy.
Wow, very interesting. He's a very interesting guy. And people can check out that show by checking out your... give your web address.
Yep, so it's mywhiskeyneat.com. You can check it out on YouTube, on Facebook, podcast platforms, and, of course, 97.5 FM ESPN Radio here in Houston. And, yeah, we got to get you guys back on soon. As soon as you get back.
We'd love to do it because there's always really good drinking involved.
Oh,
so,
for sure.
All right, Chris, you wanted to taste one of these
so Wild Turkey
whiskeys before we go?
Yep.
Sure.
So 91, back in the day, Wild Turkey got its start as a rectifier. They would purchase product like what I'm doing here. I would purchase and bottle my own rums.
Right.
They would purchase whiskey. 1991 was a particularly fantastic year for 8101. I'll take a new glass here.
Okay.
These bottles run, depending on the time of year, these bottles run about 400 a piece. Sometimes a little more, depending on how old they get. But 1991 was a fantastic year for Wild Turkey 101.
That's why I like hanging out with Chris, because I get to drink whiskey that's more expensive
You waited until
than
I'm
I
not
could
there.
afford to buy. Yeah.
Hey, I try to bring something great every time you're in town, every time I'm on.
You always
Yeah,
do.
you
baby.
always do.
You
Yes,
always
absolutely.
Do.
Wow, this has got the nose on this. First, you get like the flavor, and then here comes the proof. You know, it's like wow.
Shortly
You
after,
know you're going to be in for something with this.
Shortly after this, they got rid of the 8-year age statement and just moved to 101 proof.
Mm-hmm.
And you can currently find it. It's one of the best deals. Wild Turkey 101 should have been on that list.
This is really delicious, I got to tell you.
For under $30, you can get a liter of fantastic Kentucky bourbon of a blend of 6 to 8-year-old. Get the hiccups.
Yeah.
At 101 proof, and for a standard 750, you can get it for under $20. Wild Turkey 101 proof is something that Wade will agree with on, is one of the best budget bourbons, and it's very well respected in the bourbon world. And this was the grandfather to that. This was 1991. It's been sitting in the bottle for 29 years.
Nice.
Talk about old bottle effect. It's been just sitting in a time capsule for nearly 30 years, and it's a fantastic pour.
It really is. It's got so much flavor on the finish. It just really. And by the way, it doesn't have as much heat as the nose led me to believe that it would.
Sure.
Because when you take that first sniff, you're like, wow, this is going to punch me, and it really doesn't. I mean, there's heat, but it doesn't punch you hard. You know.
Hey, Chris, how much does sitting in the bottle have an effect on the whiskey?
So that is a hotly debated item, right?
If it's unopened.
Yeah, well, that's a hotly debated item. There is something officially, the official consensus is short term. Once you open it, once it's sitting there, whether it's open or not, short term. The short term could be 2 years. Short term could be 6 months. Nothing changes. But there is something to be said. I've got a mustache hair that's tickling the shit out of me. The consensus is there is something called old bottle effect, where whenever you have a product that sits in a glass bottle for decades, there are slow incremental changes that happen with the liquid. Slow evaporation, the cork shrinks a little bit, slow evaporation of alcohol, a very tiny environmental change. This is officially bottled at 101 proof, but I bet if you were to test it,
It's higher.
lower.
I'm sorry, lower.
Yeah,
Yes, of
I
course.
bet it would be lower because
Because
alcohol
of evaporation. And,
alcohol evaporates faster than water. I bet it would be closer to 98 proof. There's this slow incremental changes over long terms that is up for debate right now, but most people would agree that incremental changes for decades in glass is going to happen.
I just had this I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ian.
That's awesome. I always wondered. My dad had the false idea for a lot of years that if you just left it in the bottle, it was aging more. And I kept trying to tell him that's not how it really works.
Yeah,
No.
right.
No, so
But that's
Cigars
okay.
can age in your humidor.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
the whiskey
But you
not
have
so much.
active oils within those
Right.
leaves to do that. So a lot of times what happens, specifically with decanters just were not as sealed as well as a
Right.
standard bottle. Is
So there's more of an evaporation factor.
more
yeah.
evaporation happens, the alcohol reaches below a certain point, and bacterial growth starts to happen. That's why you see a lot of old bottles that were stored in direct sunlight or in improper heating
Right.
conditions that are cloudy.
Right, they've got the
That's
cloudy-
bacteria.
Yeah,
That means proof is dropped low enough that you can now start seeing bacterial growth, and it's risky to drink it at that point.
right, absolutely.
If it's clear, if you got a bottle that's 150 years old,
Here at the house that has actually a glass top to it.
Right,
And it doesn't have a cork, it has a glass top. And I always, when I have something good, I always put a cork in there instead of the glass top because I
Right.
feel like the
To seal it up.
evaporative effect would
Yeah,
be
to seal it up better. See, this is the
bad.
kind of wisdom that you get when you have a whiskey expert on the show. Chris, you're a friend, and that's more important than the whiskey expert status. But we still appreciate having you on and being able to talk this in depth about whiskey with you.
well,
It's awesome.
I cannot thank you guys enough. I mean this with the bottom of my heart. I love you, Ian. I love you, Cruz. I love you, Adam. You guys are great people. We've been friends for a long time, and I couldn't be happy to be here.
And we are hugely supportive of all of your endeavors, your rum, your whiskey social, the upcoming agave social, which I'm
I can't wait to go to
totally
that.
stoked about.
Yeah.
And of course your show, and we appreciate everything you do, man. Thank you, and we'll
Cheers,
we'll give
buddy.
our parting toast to the one and only Kristopher Hart.
Cheers, guys. Hey,
Cheers.
real quick, last 2 words of the episode. Fuck Alan. Here we go. Cheers.
Who's Alan?
Damn right.
You had to do it. You had to do it.
So much.
Nice work, Ian.
Great
You guys
job, buddy.
rock, man.
Thank you, sir.
Love you, man.
You guys rock. Thank you so much, man. I will
I'm-
see you guys later.
I'm not one to give advice, but I suggest you go have a drink and a cigar.